So one thing I get asked about a lot is how do you actually get started using Blender? And there's the obvious answers, the beginner's tutorials, they're all over YouTube. But for me, the one thing that never seems to get mentioned in any of these videos, but for me, the way I learned Blender was developing muscle memory. Muscle memory is absolutely the key to using Blender. Nothing makes sense when you first load it, and it doesn't make sense for a little while. But the more you develop your muscle memory, even with the most basic of tasks, moving things, shrinking things, rotating things, the more you learn how to do that without thinking about it, the easier Blender becomes by quite some way. And you may have done a tutorial already, you may not have done a tutorial already, that's fine. I think do a bit of this, and when you do the next tutorial, honestly, it will just make so much more sense. The problem with the beginner's tutorials for me, and I did make the donut when I started, etc., but I was just following orders, I was clicking on the things they were telling me to click, and it was going in one ear, and then I closed Blender, and then as soon as I opened it again, I realized it had gone straight out the other ear, and I hadn't latched on to what I was being told to do. Once I developed the muscle memory and I went back to make the donuts, etc., everything made more sense, and I'll be, okay, that's why I had that, that's why I do that, that's why I click on that. And because I had the muscle memory, I could then navigate around the viewport, and I wasn't daunted by anything anymore, and I could just focus on the task at hand, learning the more advanced skills. So on day one, I opened up this screen and it was all very confusing and daunting. A few obvious things. That's a box. There's some tools over here. If you put your mouse over them, it says move. Click on that, you click on the box. You can kind of see this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis, and this is the z-axis. Makes sense, right? So it might sound a bit obvious, but I think just keep doing this for a bit. Just get used to moving things up and down, left and right, back and forth. The more you keep doing this, the less it becomes something you think about later. And when you're trying to build something or model something, you don't really want to be thinking about how to move things. So first step for me was just keep doing this. I just did this a lot. If I was boiling the kettle, if I was cooking dinner, I'd come and sit on the computer, do this for 60 seconds, sometimes 30 seconds. So ignore all the keyboard shortcuts for the time being. Just use the tools on the side. Get used to clicking on these. We can move things. We can rotate things. Simple, right? But the more we do that, the more it becomes second nature. And I think second nature is absolutely the key to learning Blender, because nothing seems second nature when you first load it up. And the next step is navigation, which was the thing that really threw me when I first started using Blender. So if I use the middle mouse wheel and push it down, you can rotate around the cube. And I think just keep doing that a lot, because honestly, when I first started using Blender, I didn't know how to get around things. I was trying to place things in locations that I just couldn't do it because I just couldn't get used to this at all. I come from a 3ds Max background and it was all very different. And I think if you come from no 3D background, it's even harder probably. But just keep rotating around things. And if you use shift and click on the mouse button, you can pan along. Just keep doing that for a bit, because that is honestly half the battle, navigating your scenes. So if you do get a bit lost, if you press on the numpad, if you press the full stop or period key or decimal key, it resets the viewport and then you can start moving around again. But use the wheel to zoom in and out, push the wheel to rotate, and then if you press shift and push the wheel down, you can pan along. And honestly, for a few days, I just started doing that a lot. Just pan around, get my bearings. Because when I blindly went into tutorials before learning anything else, I was really struggling to just get the hang of this. The more you do this, and the more you can move around, everything just falls into place and it just becomes so much easier. So after doing that for a bit, I started to get a bit braver. So I go from object mode to edit mode, and then maybe go to face select, click on a face, and then again, just start playing again. So we can scale this, and then if you get a bit braver, you can go to extrude, pull that up, we can extrude again, and then we can go to scale, bring it down. Just honestly, just keep doing things like that. It sounds really dumb and it sounds really basic. And I know people just want to get making things. The time will come, and I promise you, if we do this for a couple of days, even if you do it for 30 seconds, you go away, you come back, you do another 60 seconds, you close Blender, you go away, you come back later. The more you do this kind of stuff, the more it becomes second nature. And then you start getting a bit braver. And I'm going to extrude this face here. I might extrude again, go to scale, shrink it down, extrude again. I don't know what this is, but you can see what I'm getting at. So you do that for a few days, you watch a few tutorials, you get braver. You start to learn which keys do what on the keyboard. And that's when I just find myself just doing things like this. And I still do this. If I'm waiting for the kettle to boil or waiting for dinner, I'll just play around like this, inset, which is I, E to extrude, E to extrude, S to scale, E to extrude. I just keep doing this. I'll do this all the time. I find it really relaxing. It's just a really good way of developing that muscle memory, getting used to what does what, panning around, insert, extrude. It's just the 3D equivalent of a doodle, really. It's just my way of keeping that muscle memory alive and just making everything second nature. I couldn't even tell you what the buttons were half the time. I'm just pushing them because I'm just so used to them. But the more I do that, the more less I'm thinking about it. Yeah, that is absolutely the way I would tell you to learn Blender. Just keep doing things like that. Keep doing it because it's really easy to forget things along the way with Blender. But the more you make these 3D doodles, the more you get used to things. And another fun thing you could do with this kind of like 3D doodling is if you use this tool here, add cube, make like a very thin box for the floor, and then maybe make a big cube here, maybe add a bit of a roof, and then we'll add a door, then we'll add a window, and then we'll add a bit of a pavement. We'll make another building here, another roof, be a sign here, another window, another door. There you go. That took me 2 seconds to make a very basic street, but that's my way of doodling. And the more I do things like that, the more everything just becomes absolutely second nature. Look, there's some road markings here. And there we go. And if you're new to Blender, I mean, if I was new to Blender, I'd be proud of that. I'm not very proud of it now, but it took me a whole afternoon once to make a very basic street like that when I first started using Blender. But these days, I just do it without thinking. And it's just because I just do this all the time. If I'm waiting for the microwave to ping or I'm waiting for some friends to pick me up, yeah, this is what I'll be doing. Because I live such a rock and roll lifestyle. So yeah, if you're new to Blender and you've got no idea how to use it and you're not ready for the tutorials quite yet, just keep doing things like that because it's very addictive and it's very easy. And before you know it, you'll be applying all these very, very basic skills into much more advanced things and you wouldn't even have to think about them anymore. You could just focus on the advanced stuff. And then when you're feeling a lot braver, you can go to add, you can go to mesh, and you can just start importing all these random shapes into your scene. And then before you know it, you're adding lights. And there we go. Nothing exciting, but that took me 2 seconds. I couldn't have done that in the early days of Blender. So yeah, in summary, if you're thinking about using Blender and you're completely new to it and you've got no idea where to start with that. Tutorials can follow. And if you've done the tutorials already and you've got no idea what you're doing still with Blender, just do that for a couple of weeks and then do the tutorials again. And I promise you, they will all make so much more sense. So yeah, muscle memory. That's the key.